Some say that Christmas is too commercial for Christians, that Jesus wasn't even born on Christmas Day. And so, why do we as Christians celebrate Christmas? Why do we get a Christmas tree? Why do we get lights and all the different things? Why do we buy presents and all that? And I wanted to just have a little conversation about, is Christmas too commercial for Christians? So welcome back to the You, Me, and Jesus podcast, where we talk about all things. And right now we are in the holiday season where we celebrate Christmas, and some people celebrate Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and all the things. And right now we are having a conversation about Christians and Christmas. And I feel a little bit conflicted about this subject, and for a lot of different reasons. One, I love Christmas trees. I love the lights. I love going and seeing all the lights and all that type of stuff. I love the time of year when people intentionally are a little nicer, a little more giving. I love to go into the stores and hear them playing Christmas music. I love hearing them talk about Jesus all during the holiday season, in these cool, creative ways, and nativity scene. I mean, just all this stuff, the Christmas movies. And I love receiving gifts, and I love giving gifts. And it's like, it's a big time of the year when all of that seems to happen. And so I love that stuff, What I don't love about Christmas is maybe the entitlement or obligation around what we're supposed to do during that time. Like, we're supposed to give people gifts. We're supposed to propose. We're supposed to do all these things because it's Christmas, right? And then when I think about it as a Christian, this is the particular time of the year where we set aside time to celebrate the birth, life, death of Jesus. Well, the death is more so like Easter, but the birth of Jesus, right? And what he means to us, what his life has done for us, right? While that is not the day that Jesus was actually born, right? And the conflicting messages or knowings about paganism, Christmas trees, and all those types of things, right? I feel conflicted. And for the longest time, I didn't really feel conflicted about this subject. It wasn't until I met my ex-husband, who was very, I don't know how to describe how he is or was, but he was a thinker, right? He wasn't somebody who just did with the status quo, that just did exactly what everybody did. He had his own way of doing things and thinking and all that type of stuff. And one of his things was he wasn't really fond of Christmas. He wasn't fond of Christmas trees and decorations and all that type of stuff, to the point to where we were only married for a short while, but that Christmas that we were together as a married couple, he wasn't fond of us getting a Christmas tree. And I was like, well, you don't have to celebrate. I love Christmas trees, and so we're getting a tree, but he was all about that tree when it got in the house. But anyway, his presence made me become more aware of different things, but I'm still at this stage where I'm like, I would rather us take a time of the year where we celebrate Jesus, and the whole world is celebrating Jesus, some knowingly and some unknowingly. I'd rather take some time to celebrate him and all that type of stuff than not, right? Now, do I think that it has become too commercial, right? I think that there is a hint of truth in that. I think there's a hint of truth in the fact that we put so much emphasis on the tree and the lights and the gifts and all that type of stuff that we don't really set aside time to really focus on what we're supposed to be celebrating anyway, which is the birth of Jesus, me included. Like, I'm a big person. I love to receive gifts, and like, I haven't really received gifts a lot as a kid. And so I put emphasis on receiving gifts during, Christmas, and, I could see my emphasis on wanting to celebrate the season and gift giving than on celebrating the birth of Jesus, right? I can see my own, habit in that. And so would I say that Christmas has become very commercial to Christians? I would have to say yes. I don't want to say yes, but I would have to say yes, right? Because if I put myself in a room of 10 Christians, And we asked everybody, how many of you guys set aside a significant amount of time during the Christmas holiday season to focus on the life of Jesus, the birth of Jesus, and all that type of stuff? How many of you would say you set aside more time celebrating his life than on preparing for Christmas? How many of you would raise your hand? I think nobody would. And I'm not saying nobody as a Christian will in general, but I'm saying if we selectively chose 10 Christians and I was in a room with them, how many of us would raise our hand and say we set aside more time to celebrate the birth of Jesus than we do Christmas as all the things? I don't think any of us would be able to raise our hand, because we do put a lot of emphasis on Christmas, Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas. We do put a lot of focus on that. And as I'm saying this, I feel so convicted, because it is true. I spend way more time preparing for Christmas, right? So I'm going on a cruise for Christmas, the 21st or the 28th, right? I've got decor I'm bringing. I got magnets for my room. I got a bunch of people sent me gifts from my Amazon wish list. I got them all wrapped up without me knowing what's in them. Somebody wrapped them for me. And I put so much emphasis on preparing for that and no real preparation for how am I going to celebrate the birth of Jesus on Christmas Day on the cruise ship. I have not set aside a thought process about that. I do know that on the ship that they have a Christmas service where it's like 30 minutes or an hour. I think it's like an hour, where a pastor gets up and he talks about the life of Jesus. He reads, and we get some papers for us to be able to sing and recite some things. And that's it. It's like 30 minutes. I think it's about 30 or 45 minutes. And that's it. And I do know that I have the plans on attending that. And that's it. And so when I am saying this to you, I'm saying this from a place of, I understand, because it's too commercial for all of us. We have all made it about Christmas and not Jesus, right? And I'm not trying to condemn anybody as you're watching or listening to me, but I am trying to get you to go, well, let's take an assessment. Here we are right before Christmas, and I want you to ask yourself the question, what are you doing? What are you doing to honor Jesus in this holiday season and this Christmas season over the food and the gifts and the games and the family and all that type of stuff? So I just wanted to share that message today, because this is my own conviction as I'm sharing this with you today. And I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments.